Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Are we ready to start?
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Theresa, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
This book is so beautiful and so powerful and so important. And we would love for you to give us a little glimpse into what this book journey, where it started. Where did this book start?
This book started with an opportunity I had back in January of 2019. I was asked to perform for a television show. It was the second show that I had, ever been able to do poetry on. And it happened to be the Trumpet Awards. It was filmed here in Atlanta. It's an award show to celebrate Black excellence. So when they asked me to perform, they just wanted a poem about Blackness. So, I performed, I did the poem, and it kind of went to the back of my mind because, that's kind of the way TV works. A few weeks later in February, the show aired, and it got a nice response. And I kind of put it to the back of my mind because it wasn't my first time doing TV. No big deal. I woke up the next morning to like 500,000 views. The next day, it was 1 million views. The day after that, it was, and it's just kept growing and growing and growing. So that is really where You So Black started, as a viral poem. Well, a poem I did for the Trumpet Awards that turned into a viral sensation across all social media platforms. And in the midst of the very beginning of it kind of avalanching into something really awesome, Denene reached out to me actually to do an interview. And in the midst of our interview, she was like, this should be a children's book. And I was like, oh, it should? Completely oblivious. Denene had to basically tap me on my shoulders like 3 times and then knock me over and say, girl, when are we going to do this children's book? And by then, I was ready and locked in. So it's really, I would like to think in my heart that this whole process has been like divine. Like every step of it has just been the universe putting me in a very specific place to the right people to make it just smooth sailing. I've done a few interviews. They keep asking me, what's the most difficult part about this process? It hasn't been difficult. It hasn't been difficult at all in any way, shape, or form. It is divinely illustrated, not just by London Lab, but like by the universe. It has been divinely illustrated to make this happen.
I do not doubt that at all.
Yes.
I mean, it is so stunning and beautiful. And I want to show you my favorite spread. Oops. I love that you say You So Black, when you're born, the God come out. It is,
yes.
What a beautiful and true statement.
Yes.
So,
it's so beautiful.
It is. So Denene, what was it about this poem that made you want to acquire it?
Well, I woke up to that viral moment on Instagram and was just like, who is this? and I need to talk to her right away.
Yes.
I had a podcast with our local NPR affiliate, and the podcast was Speakeasy with Denene, and each one of the episodes was keyed toward a specific password, if you will, and one of the passwords was Black. And it was broken up into 3 segments, and one of the segments was always something to do with the arts, so it'd be music or poetry. And of course, after seeing Theresa's viral poem and looking at it obsessively over and over and over and over and over again, practically committing it to memory, I thought that she would be perfect for the episode Black. And she came in and we had the best conversation, and she performed a bit of the poem for the podcast. And it was so beautiful. And I was just like, okay, so let me shoot my shot. Can I?
I know, I'm kind of hoping for that too.
Right. And I see this as a children's book. And I saw it as a children's book because what Theresa did with her words was to turn a phrase that when I was growing up was meant as an insult into something that is absolutely beautiful and powerful and true. And it's something that, I had to learn to get over as a kid, someone calling you Black or telling you to stay out of the sun, or like you don't want to get any darker, or your hair is not the appropriate texture for appropriateness, whatever that meant. But as a kid, it hurt. And so I thought it was important to put it in the context that Theresa put it in for children, so that children who look like me, who grew up like me, understand that You So Black is not a negative thing, that this is a positive thing. And
it's empowering.
Yeah, Theresa just, and she, in every word, she puts an exclamation point on that point.
Right, reclaiming the power of that phrase. So
Absolutely.
important. So important. Well, we're so glad, Theresa, that you agreed to turn the poem into a book.
Yeah.
And so, Denene, once you decided and everything was worked out and it was going to be a book, what was the illustrator selection process like?
It was easy, because right at the time that Theresa agreed, London had started posting new artwork on his Instagram page, which is where I find all of my illustrators these days. But London and I worked together, and he didn't realize it, but we worked together. He illustrated my very first children's book.
Oh, wow.
Goodness.
But I'd written it, I ghost wrote the children's book for someone, and he was the illustrator. And so he didn't know that I was involved in that book, but I'd followed his career this whole time, because, hey, he was, my first. And so I saw him doing some new work on his IG page, and literally reached out to him. I was like, what's going on here? I see something different. It's beautiful. Are you doing this style for children's books? And he was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And so I asked him if we could, just talk about it. And we talked. And then I met with his agent and talked to his agent and pitched this concept to him, and he went for it. And what made London perfect for this project was I just loved the way that he had turned his colors and his multimedia, and just sort of the way that he was presenting us with this new mode of art that he was pursuing. There was one specific piece that looked like a collage, but that was super colorful. It was a woman pushing a baby in a stroller. And when I saw that, I lost it. That's when I reached out to him, and I was just like, we've got to do something together, and it needs to be quickly. It's just the color, the passion. You can see his passion in the colors.
That's true.
And the way that he makes, look at how these children are glowing on this cover with that purple, that royal purple. There's just something about it that just speaks so beautifully to the point of the book.
Agreed.
Black being royalty. And so it just made all the sense in the world. And it just made sense.
Well, London, we are so happy that you said yes to working on this project. And we're also curious, what was it that made you want to say yes?
Theresa's words. They just, those memes where they have somebody just standing there and it's just like wind is blowing them back, and it's just, that's the way when Denene first shared that video with me, and I just goosebumps. I still get goosebumps if I still watch that video. And the way that it just spoke through me, it was very emotive, in every sense of me, and in how I want my work to represent now. Whereas, like, the way that she is honest and strong and powerful in every way, with every nuance, every cadence of that word, it was my desire to really capture that Like just to real, and believe it or not, like the experience of this book has really changed how I approach my projects now. Just to it's amazing how you hear the words of the author and speak them in the truest form, and that's what she did. And I just can't. I can't thank her enough. I can't thank Denene enough for this project, for this, because with this book, it's like I've done books around the same time. I have books pretty much since October and one after this that are coming out. But there's something about this book, whenever I look at it, it's like it's the truest form of me and of expression of who I am as a Black man, as an illustrator, what I'm evolved into. And it's her, and I will say this about Theresa's words. Her words were so powerful. I was in grad school, and when I was going from, I had to do my thesis. I built my thesis around Blackness. That's how powerful. I was like, oh my goodness. And
Wow.
it was just everything about this book is I love very much. I'm super proud of it. Usually when I get into a book and I look at it and I'm like, oh, I should have did this differently. I should have did that. This is one of the few that I can look at and I'm like, no, it's on
You
there.
nailed it.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's when Kirsty and I were talking about that before the interview today. It's one of those books that hits you and sticks with you and just feels, I don't want to say more than a book because books are so important and I love books, but it's just so powerful. The message and the art together, and
So special. And there is like
yeah.
a really alive synergy between the words and the art in a way that you don't see with most picture books.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's just stunning, and we're thrilled to have you all here talking about it. Theresa, coming back to you, looking at the words, can you give us a little bit of a look into what it was like to write the poem? I know you wrote it for the TV show, and what was that like? Was it hard? Does it come out of you?
The poem, actually, I've written that poem years before
Okay.
I went to do the television show. And because it is so centric to Blackness, it was a piece that I would save for like if I was doing like a Black History Month show or if I was doing like Juneteenth. And it's always been one of those things where as soon as I start performing it, I lose it because just watching people absorb it, I just can't hold it together. I cannot hold it together, right? But the process of writing it, again, is like I kind of go into a space where the energy of the world is like, it's time to write. And this is sort of the area you're going to be writing in. So that's when I just grab a notebook and whatever starts coming out of my brain, I just keep it there, right? And then in 3 or 4 days, I assess everything I've written, maybe put it in a different order, and it's done. And it seems like even though it's me, I don't necessarily know if it's me doing it, you know what I mean? But I feel very divinely
Inspiration.
connected in that aspect. Because it wasn't one of those things where I had to work really hard at it. It was one of those things where immediately I knew what the beginning of the poem was going to be. I knew what the body of it was. Like once I got into the Black is, I was like, we are going to break it down. All of the things that people think Black is and what it really is, like down to the root. And we are going to reevaluate and take back the power of Blackness in a space where like almost globally, Blackness, your skin color is a division. It's a tool that other can use to weaponize against the carrier of it, right? And it's something that we have to teach our children growing up. And like while true, that is something that is still happening. I also want to be able to teach our children this. I want to be able to teach our children that despite the fact that this is something that's being weaponized against you, this is the program. The program is that you are the foundation of humanity. You are the beauty of God walking around here in all these different shades. You are an inventor. You are the same stuff that the stars and the dirt are made of. So from your feet to the sky, everything is yours. Everything is connected to you, and you should feel empowered by that. That is, so when I was writing it, I don't know if I was thinking about all of that, but once the last period was on it, I could feel all of that for myself.
You see what I'm saying?
I
That's
do. I
beautiful.
know. Just keep talking, Theresa.
You see what I'm saying?
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And Denene, actually, we wanted to know what the editing process was like, because we noticed that what Theresa, what you did on YouTube is a slightly different from the book. What you
Yes.
Right, just slightly. I think I may have taken out just one phrase, I think. And I think I took it out just because I thought the word that children wouldn't be able to understand the word. It escapes me what it is. But it was, I think that it was seamless in the way that Theresa and I worked on that specific part. And then the, like editing also includes the illustrations, right? And so editing in terms of figuring out how to visualize Theresa's words and how to make them dance on the page and have their specific moments on the page, so that when a child is reading it or a caregiver is reading it to that child, that the beat, the cadence makes sense for reading versus Theresa speaking it. And that is all, a collaboration between the author and the words and the illustrator, and the way that the illustrator is telling that story via the pictures. And so when the two of them have that perfect synergy, like this one does, it makes it very easy for a caregiver or a child to really understand and connect with not just the words, but the illustrations all together. And so, getting that right was really, really important. And that's my favorite part, right? Is to figure out how to make those words stick to the illustrations and have three different artists, right? It's the author, the illustrator, and the editor come together and create this piece of art collectively with respect for what each one of us brings to the table.
I love how it's a true collaboration.
Yeah. And that had to feel a little challenging, because hearing Theresa recite the poem in her words is, the impact of that. So to make sure that the book had the same impact, I'm sure it was, we got to get this right. And you did. It's wonderful. London, speaking of the beautiful illustrations, can you share with us what the process was like for you going through the story?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just too many stories to talk about with each illustration. I don't know if you want to see a process, if you want me to share like on there, but I can talk about it if it's not possible. It's because every page. Can I? I don't want to. I was gonna say, could you? I just remember going back when I think about the illustrations. I remember a meeting that Denene, the creative team had, that really both terrified me, but then yet pushed me to be like, okay, this has got to be as unapologetic as Theresa's words were. This book has to bring it. There was a meeting that we had, I remember, with the art director and you. I think my agent was on there, because I was reading it and I was like, okay, this is gonna be daunting, because this is intense, and I know the care that Theresa put into this poem and what it means, and I cannot come short with this. This has to. And I remember we had that meeting, and Denene was like, we need a Black book, and I won't say the word. And I remember I wrote it in my in my journal book, underlined it, and we finished it, and we finished that Zoom, and I was like, oh no, what am I gonna, oh boy. She's mentioning books, and she goes, no, ours has to be gritty, honest, real, and is because that's what we are. And I was like, okay, this polish, this thing that we had, that she didn't want polish. She wanted as honest and gritty as possible, because as a creator, when I visit schools, and I visit schools anywhere, whether they're rural country, they're suburban or inner city, anywhere I go, and you talk to Black folk, the best school visits and presentations are when I'm as honest as possible. If I get up there and try to just sugarcoat something, and we're like, no, I did a great job, and I was this, and they're gonna look at you like, get out of here. Like, it's just so my art had to represent Blackness in a way that was as gritty and honest and and is true. So doing this, everything, the ideas that I would come across, like even when she was like, Black is strong, that was quick, because that was personal. Because I could, like, when you see the boy on the shoulders of his dad in that moment, because I didn't have a dad, and I could imagine having a dad and being, your dad could be 6 foot, but you're like 8 foot on the shoulders of your father. So when you see the girl on the first page, when she's looking in the sky, like, that's my daughter. That's like, as children, but especially, I'm biased because I have a daughter. I tend to lean more towards my work having more connecting to young women. That one, like, I remember being with my daughter many a time, and we just staring up into the sky, and just in full of wonder. So, like, with the images that they come in here, they came from a lot of them came from dreams. A lot of them came from the middle of the night. A lot of them came where just, like, if I overthought it, it wasn't there. It had to kind of, where I see something, like I saw, like, when Black is privilege, like, that was Obama. I just remember the whole Obama's inauguration. I just remember that was that privilege and that pride, and it was just so, like, the process of this, like what Theresa was saying, it was a spiritual, emotive experience, a connection of oneness with the text. Because if I didn't do that, then it doesn't come through. And the one thing that I will thank Denene, and I will thank the creative force, they just let me create. They just said, you just go. Like, the stuff that I did, like the Black is Love, that's Denene, right? I took that picture offline. I took that picture offline because I was like, I love that picture so much. It's everything that embodies love. Just that tender moment. I took that picture off of Instagram. I love that picture.
Love
I was
that.
like,
I
and I'm going to
love
use that picture.
this.
Huh?
That's amazing.
This is
That's
so
I thought it
great.
was me. I'm gonna just say for a moment, I really thought the Black Love page was me, and I
I'm
feel
sorry,
right
I'm
now.
sorry.
So I'm gonna just hold myself.
It's a collaboration.
A collaboration,
Collaborative.
yes. But that's what it takes. And that's what I said. Even with this book, I was like, Denene, and I said this to you too, Theresa, you haven't decided yet. I was like, pick a page. What illustration do you want? And I don't do that. I don't give up my illustrations. They are babies to me. They do that. They will sit in the storage, and they're gonna find them when I die. They're gonna blow the dust off of them, and somebody's gonna, like, my daughter will have to make money off of them, because I don't give them up. But I was like, with this experience, I was like, Denene, take one. And I was like, Theresa, you got to take one.
And I'm so grateful for that. I will tell you that when we started thinking about how this book would be shaped illustratively, we were talking about it. We signed the deal with Theresa right around the time that George Floyd had been murdered, and the entire world was saying Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Atlanta, I remember sitting on my couch and being scared, just because where I live, we were hearing helicopters all day and all night. We were smelling smoke because I lived not too far away from where another gentleman had been killed right around that time by cops at a Wendy's while he was sleeping, napping after, having a night of drink. And he stopped at the Wendy's to, kind of sleep it off. And one thing led to another, and he ended up being shot by cops. And so Atlanta was on fire, literally, when Theresa and I were talking about how we could turn this into a children's book. And one thing that I've always felt when dealing with racism or talking about racism, specifically with children and helping them through dealing with racist moments, right? Think about when something racist happens on a college campus or in an elementary school or high school. The first inclination is to punish the white kids or the kids who committed the racist act, right? By giving them history lessons on why they should not do those things, right? So it's like, we're gonna sit you in a room and we're gonna have people talk to you about how racism hurts the people that you committed against, or, here are ways that you can express yourself and what it is that you're trying to say without being offensive. And I've always had a problem with that. Not because I think that white kids who commit acts of racism shouldn't go through a learning process of how to express themselves, but because it leaves the Black kids who were hurt and harmed vulnerable, right? We don't necessarily speak to that. We think that sitting down and waving and wagging our finger at the kid who committed the violence somehow makes the kid who had the violence committed against them feel better. And I submit, as a mother of Black children, as a person who loves Black children, as a parenting expert, as a Black woman myself who's been through some pretty racist things during the course of my 54 years on this planet, that it is the victim of that racism who should be held. It is the victim of that racism who should be talked to. It is the victim of potential acts of racism who should be talked to about how it is that you manage yourself once that is committed against you, right? And the fastest, easiest way to do that is to make a little Black kid stand up with their shoulders square and their nose held up high. I don't care what it is that you're saying, because I know who I am. I know what this means. I know how beautiful it is. I know how powerful it is. I know what it means to the world. I know what it's meant to creation. And so by the time that somebody comes to them with the foolishness, I'm not going to say that it doesn't hurt and it doesn't sting, but it takes that power from what that person is saying to them. And so to me, You So Black, for me, was an answer to how do you deal with, as a child, how do you fortify a Black child?
Yes.
That when they are dealing with that specific aspect of being Black in America, or being Black anywhere in the world, quite frankly, how do you fortify that child? And Theresa's poem, that's what makes my, the hair stand up on my arms and on my body, because she did what I wish somebody had done for me when I was a kid. And she did what I hope to do with my imprint for children when they pick up these books, that they see themselves and they understand their power and the beauty of their skin color, their Blackness. And so this book speaks directly to that. London killed it in making sure that we could see that beyond the words. And so I'm just super proud to have this on my imprint.
Oh my goodness, you should be. It is so beautiful. And I think it does accomplish everything that you just talked about. And I am a therapist and I use picture books bibliotherapeutically with kids. And this is exactly the kind of book that I would use with some of my clients. So we have one more question, and actually you just answered it.
Yeah.
You just answered it, Denene. So we're going to ask the other two. London, when someone reads this book, You So Black, what do you hope people feel or learn?
I just power of self and value and worth, and that you are more than enough, more than capable. Just everything. I don't know how I could say it any better than how Denene put it, or how Theresa will put it. I just let the work show. I speak through the words of the words speak through the art for me. That's the best that I can do. Because that's what if I post something and somebody says, like you, that really made an imprint on me. That really, I see myself. That's the best. I am not a wordsmith at all. I am just a artsmith. That's it.
I
So
wouldn't say that.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
thank you. And
Yeah.
I think that's, to me, because I always struggled with my own blackness, being, because my mom is white. So I didn't know as much until I got older, into my adultness, to really understand the significance, importance, the depth of blackness,
Mhm.
the perseverance of blackness, and the forever. The black is going to be here forever, no matter what obstacles or anything that's here, it's gonna endure. And to me, I am so proud of that, and I'm grateful to be in such a I'm grateful to be a black man. I am. So for my art, it has to speak that in the most genuine way possible. And that's why, like, a lot of the work that I do, it's black. And before this book, I would work with my agent, or when I was in college, they're like, you got to do more. You got to do animals. You got to do diversity. When I went to grad school, I was like, you know what? Everything's going to be like, I'm here to learn and grow. So I want to grow more as a man, as a black man, as an African American, everything, as a creator of art. And the lasting legacy that I can leave with myself is to have my work best represent. I think that's just it for me. And I will never stop doing black theme books. If they're the stories are always going to be there in any form. So I will just keep posts of black in every way possible. And it's funny because as I mature as a creator in this industry, now I set boundaries for myself. I set personal boundaries where I don't do books of a certain subject matter. I won't do it. If you bring it to me, it's gone. If it's just, I can respectfully read it, but I just can't. There's certain subject matter that it's like, I'm not the guy for it. You can find somebody, but
Mhm.
it's like, I've done it. I don't need to be there. I don't think it's something that, for me, what my work represents: the vibrancy, the life, the love, the passion, the now of blackness,
Mhm.
and going forward. That's what I need to. That's what I want to see and embody. So I don't know.
That's great. Thank
That's
you.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Theresa, same question for you. When someone reads this book, what do you hope they feel or learn?
I think the best way I can put this is like this. So I just came home from my grandmother's 90th birthday. She's a retired elementary school teacher.
Wow.
So in my house, there was ages 90 down to 6 in the house at the time. And when they opened the book, every single person who looked at the book would look at a page and say, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's so-and-so. Like, that is the experience. And that's what I want people to continue to get. When they open the book, I want them to identify. And as long as they identify, then the rest of the words and the art, all of that will fall exactly into place. When they open the book and not just see themselves, but see their cousins, their grandmothers, their uncles, fathers, mothers, people they never met, especially that page where they're holding up the pictures of their ancestors. These children have never met those people. But to know that and to see that and then be like, oh, grandmama's got a wall like that of people I've never met before.
So I just noticed we have less than a minute. So if we get cut off, I just saw it. I was like, oh my goodness,
Oh my
But
goodness.
that's the-
You guys
that's
are
all I
amazing.
have. I just want that to happen.